providing practical, cutting-edge wisdom, embracing all parts of the human experience into a map of transformation, accelerating soul alignment for individual and collective ascension. We are your hosts, Jonathan Mosenter
and Soraya Rachel
on the Relationship Alchemists. Welcome to episode number 2 of the Relationship Alchemists. On today's episode, we are going to pick up where we left off last week. We're going to review the 6 paths and continue with the path of capacity. Soraya, would you like to start to go through the paths?
Currently, we're working in personal alignment, which is called the path of capacity. There is also in the first person a path of purification called remembering wholeness. And in the second person, there's the interactive or interpersonal skills of human connection, the path of intimacy, and community dynamics, the path of collaboration. Rounding it off with the third person paths, which are the metacognitive paths of clarity, the path of the transpersonal, and unity, the path of understanding.
In last week's show, we started with personal alignment, particularly with the emphasis of energy and how energy supports transformation. And we particularly focused on energetic capacities. Now we're going to deepen with the path of personal capacity. And this show, we're going to focus on the physical, mental, and emotional, as well as talk about how the path of capacity intersects with the other paths.
Yes, because it's really foundational to creating the bandwidth and availability to do some of the work in the other paths. So we will get into that later in the show.
Yeah, so let's start off with physical. I think most people associate energy with physical energy, so this would probably be the most concrete. And there are many domains within physical, starting with just physical exercise, which we know is essential. I think most people have had a direct experience of doing different kinds of physical exercise. It could be anything really, from going to the gym and lifting weights to running, riding your bike.
And there's even movement practices that can double as exercise. Like dance, for example, can be very cardiovascular. And, some personal favorites of mine that I think kind of double in, helping with presence and ticking this box of physical capacity are things like yoga and authentic movement, which is essentially moving from a place of no mind and allowing your body to dictate an original choreography or an original authentic movement. And then we also have contact improv as another favorite of mine, where you're leaning into a dance partner and sharing gravity, and that being a form of two-person dance that it's similar to having other kinds of partner dance. You do tango, swing, ballroom, all of these really help with mind-body connection and increase your physical capacity. And then there's flow arts, which is essentially dancing with props. And flow arts is really special because it works on relationship without having to involve a partner. So it's something you can do at any time. And when you're working with the momentum of the prop, there's this way that we're learning to co-create with reality with sensitivity. It allows us to find the meeting point between what's already in motion and what we can influence, and to learn to dance on that edge. So I get a lot out of working on movement and embodiment and physical exercise through that form as well.
And it's important to understand with the path of capacity, first we're talking about energetic capacities, like being a better version of yourself. But each of these different practices might increase your capacity in other ways. So, for example, if I'm playing basketball, not only am I getting a cardiovascular capacity increase, but if you're playing with a team and you're communicating, you're working on your communication skills, you're working on your strategy skills. Could be like hand-eye coordination. There could be a physical element. So capacity could mean more than just increasing your energy and getting in better shape, but that's always important. But each of these offers a different ability, coordination, some focus on being in your body, working with others, working with props. So I just want to point out that capacity has a broader understanding than simply, more energy. Mm. So go ahead.
There's also, as far as physical capacity enhancement that's working directly with the body, things like stretching, massage, Thai yoga therapy. And I want to just emphasize how much of a game changer doing these on the regular can truly be. I've seen Jonathan come back from a massage a different person.
Absolutely.
There's so much tension that's stored subconsciously in the body that a regular practice of physically releasing tension creates availability in the system in a huge way.
Yeah, when you're feeling uptight, then your body is taking energy to try and manage that, and you're not flowing at an optimal pace or an optimal way, and you don't feel like you're at capacity, and then that's frustrating, and it not only you not have the right energy, but you're frustrated you don't have energy, which drops your energy even more. And massage and stretching has so many different modalities within it. You could get all these different kinds of massage. There's like light tissue and deep tissue and stretching massages and Swedish. There's
Thai.
Like dry needling, which is another one, like releasing energy stored in like the deep tissue. And then there's all different kinds of massage toys. Like we have must have like 20 massage toys at least. We got like neck scratchers and things that knead your calves and things that point into your neck. And we've got a device called a Ma roller that works on the muscles outside of the spine. I know we both like the lacrosse ball for getting like stuff in the buttocks and other big
like shoulder cuffs,
shoulders. Yeah.
Anything that's
heated, not heated.
Yeah.
The massage gun is something that's appropriate. So it's a really underutilized and underappreciated part of getting us into the best aspect of who we are. Maybe we should move on to another one that a lot of people talk about, which is things we put in our body.
Diet.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of, and Jonathan has too, transformation just from working with diet. When I was early in my awakening journey, I did a program called Purification, and I realized that, I was actually eating out a lot because I had resistance to going to the grocery store. And so when I started having this superfood shake mix powder that could hold down my hunger under any circumstance, it really provided me the safety and the security to experiment with what I want to eat and to not be afraid of like cooking something and it turning out awful. Oh, I'll just throw a smoothie together. So yeah, that really opened up a whole new journey for me as far as reprogramming my taste buds to actually be attracted to foods that were nourishing me instead of just craving sugar all the time and being in a craving cycle. And I ended up in a period of a few years dropping from like 220 to now I'm in the 160s. So yeah, diet, there's like a lot of mental stuff that can go into diet, but it's fundamentally something that impacts your body and really creates a whole new baseline of health and wellness.
Yeah, we have our students and we have them track their energy and see, for example, the effect of food, which foods are fueling energy, which foods and food habits are draining your energy. I used to not have a great diet myself, and when I was starting my transformation, the first thing I changed was my diet. I learned from reading Tim Ferriss about this paleo diet where you are eating mostly protein and vegetables, and I cleared out. I was eating a lot of carbs at the time, and I basically made a list of all the proteins and vegetables I liked and just decided to go all in on that diet. And I remember my energy dramatically changed just cutting out all the carbs. The carbs were giving me a lot of like spike energies where I'd have an energy high followed by an energy low. Also, the amount of food that we eat at any one time, I noticed greatly affects my energy. Sometimes if I eat way too much, I'll get really sluggish. Something I'm sure we can all identify with. So it's really important to be mindful about what you're putting into your body and how it affects your energy.
Yeah, and to really be with what your body is asking you for. Sometimes I noticed earlier in my relationship with food, I was having cravings, and I thought I wanted sugar, but really I wanted fat because my body was craving something satiating. Yeah, there's a lot to be learned in the area of food, nutrition, and diet. So much so that, entire careers are dedicated to nutrition, and some people will hire coaches specifically for that. So it's something that has a lot of depth of learning available, and we can't stress enough, experimenting with what works for you and learning from that journey. Another code that I picked up with diet was around the doshas in Ayurvedic nutrition, which is,
What's a dosha?
Pitta, Kapha, Vata, I think is the last one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the four elements are split into an earth water diet, a fire diet, and an air diet. And so it actually works with your body's elemental balance to help you eat foods that keep you regulated. And I realized I was eating a lot of pitta foods that were fiery, and that was creating a lot of the acid reflux and heartburn and indigestion that was defining some of my earlier explorations in food. So there are many, many tools along the path that can inform our journey with diet, but all paths lead to Rome in the sense that all of them take you on a path of awareness to really sensing in to what it is that your body is nourished by and what your body needs, and having a direct communication with your body, which is also where things like supplements come in.
I work with a naturopath and have discovered that supplements, the right kind of supplements, can really enhance your life. I've done all kinds of testing to see where I'm strong and weak and which supplements can benefit. And I've even done like my genetic research to see what the illnesses am I in the long term prone to, and what supplements help prevent that or make it less likely. So depending on what your issues are, you can look for the supplements that will match yours. Are some supplements that are like well-rounded. For example, mushroom supplements. We've been working with something like lion's mane for example,
For memory,
and making the brain working better, and cordyceps gives you more energy. There could do several episodes just on all the different supplements, but there really is importance, I think, with the supplements, of understanding which supplements you really need the most that are fulfilling your needs, and working with somebody to kind of measure whether that's working or not. And
what's the one that helps with sunlight intake?
The vitamin D?
Yeah, vitamin D, I feel like, is
Yeah.
unilaterally necessary. Someone told me once, the amount of sun a human body needs is only really achieved by a construction worker who does roofing. And that's when I realized, oh yeah, we used to be tribal animals that, hunted in the woods all day and only really had covering or shelter if we were like going to bed in a teepee. So just looking at, what does the body universally need? I've also found most people need magnesium. It's a way of the body regulating its like water salt ratio and really getting the electrolytes that it needs. I also think, in the times that we're currently in, vitamin C and giving that immune system a little boost is pretty universally helpful.
Yeah, zinc is another one. I think the reason us bringing up supplements now is to just make people aware that they are an important part of an energy package and to really customize it to your own specific needs. Speaking of that, we should talk about sleep. Sleep is a cornerstone of energy. People getting enough sleep, the quality of the sleep, and there's all these new technologies to measure your sleep progress. And what do you have to say about that, Soraya?
I think that it's incredibly important to listen to your body because there is too little sleep, but there's also too much sleep. And some people have 1.5 hour REM cycles and some people have 2 hour REM cycles. So a REM cycle is the amount of time it takes for you to go from the lightest part of sleep all the way into the deepest part of sleep where dreams are created and return to the lighter part of sleep. And so some people, their bodies really need the familiarity of I go to bed at the same time every night. My body more operates by I need to wake up at the end of a REM cycle. Like I need to come out of sleep at the time when I'm ready to come out of sleep and not be interrupted by an alarm and try to be yanked out from the deep dreaming place back to waking state, because that's when I get sluggish. So when I go to bed, I measure out, if you're 1.5 hours or 2 hours, I actually calculate how many REM cycles I'm going to get in and set my morning alarm based on that so that I know I'm getting complete rhythms.
Yeah, I think it's really important that there isn't a one-size-fits-all sleep schedule. I was reading in my human design a self-assessment, and it said that my type, a generator for sleep, does best when it's working on things that it's passionate about and goes to sleep when it's tired. And that's kind of how when I operate best is I'm just like I feel done. And as Soraya was saying, listening to your body, if I need a nap, I used to fight at one point in time if I was feeling sleepy. I just felt like I had to go. And now I've realized to listen to my body. So if I'm feeling like I need a nap now, I just don't fight it. I'll just, nod off for a little while. And that's been really helpful to just be in tune with exactly what the body needs. There's a lot of different techniques of measuring sleep and depth of sleep, the Fitbit and stuff.
Yeah. It's good to measure it and really look at the quality and what can help with quality, like not eating before bed or things like that. But I was going to go back to the nap point that you were just making, Jonathan, and say that I've heard a lot of people say that they can't do naps. And I think bodies are pretty universally created to nap. And so I wanted to share that 20 and 40 minutes are the two chunks of napping time that are most universally beneficial to the human body, depending on whether you're a 1.5 hour or 2 hour sleeper. It allows you to get as much rest as possible without dipping into the REM state, and then you're trying to wake up from a nap because it was short, but you've already gone into the deepest part of sleep, and so you're pulling out sluggish. So there is too long of a nap. Like sometimes naps, like they turn into just sleeping. Like if you pretend that it's going to be a 20-minute thing and then you wake up 4 hours later, that's probably because your body needed it. Just back to what Jonathan was saying, and to allow it to emerge organically.
In addition to sleep, a lot of people don't. They think relaxation is almost the opposite of energy, but if we have a relaxed way of being in our body, we actually gives us more energy. More in one another way is like if you relax, you're also more present to like what's happening. You're present, what's going on in your body. You're present in the future. So having an orientation of having some relaxation in your to get having practices to be in a relaxed state is going to make you a better person. It's going to increase your capacity. It's going to give you more energy throughout the day. It's going to give you more higher quality energy.
How do you relax, Jonathan?
Well, one thing we're gonna segue into the mental game, but for me, I find being in tune with what I'm thinking about and being able to feel like I have an understanding and a way of managing relaxes me. Physically, I think taking like paying attention to my breath is a good practice for relaxing. Maybe even just having times where I'll like sit down or lie down and just focus on relaxing and being in the body for 10 to 20 minutes can put me in that state. But there's definitely a lot of things. Definitely keeping up with my stretching and massage. The more I do that helps me just relax into my body. So just being aware that as a dynamic around capacity building is really important. Soraya?
For me, it's tea and soft blankets.
Nice.
That's my sweet spot, where my body's like, everything's good in the world. I am calm.
Let's talk about two more things in the physical domain before we move to the mental. Essential oils. You know a lot about that, Soraya. You want to mention that?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways essential oils can be used. One is aromatherapy, where you diffuse the oils into the air, and that is shown to impact mood. And so there are companies like Young Living and doTERRA that release blends designed to create certain moods. And so I really like that for increasing capacity. But I think when I'm thinking about truly the path of capacity, like how do we get more availability, it's to anoint yourself with the essential oils, to actually put it in the skin and let it absorb. And within 20 minutes, it'll be in the bloodstream, and where it lasts for up to 6 weeks. So there's a compound effect of using it regularly, whether it be daily or multiple times a week. And each of the oils produces different kinds of effects or qualities. And it can be very spiritual. My priestess lineage is where I'm learning how to be an aromatic priestess. But for me, what I've been experiencing directly is I feel more connected to the earth. I feel the energy in my body more. I'm more present. I'm receiving messages from my body as positive sensation rather than just pain signals warning me of the consequences of not doing certain things. So yeah, it can be a really deep practice.
And the last category I want to mention is there's a lot of devices that handle biotechnology devices that improve the physical energy. I'm just going to mention two that I use, and Soraya might mention one or two, and there's a whole bunch of them, but there's one that I really enjoy called the Beamer, Bemer, a German product I've been using for almost a decade. It's about using PEMF waves to make the capillaries in our body go back and forth, and it increases the blood flow in those areas, and that gives you not only more energy but more health. It helps keep you youthful looking. And the other one is the red light therapy. Red light therapy is really good for the skin and the energy. And those are easy devices that you can have in your own home and throw on when you need them. I use the Beamer every day.
And red light, doesn't that help with collagen?
Yes.
Keeping your collagen young, and also it can help with aches and pains too.
Absolutely, it's great for muscles. So is the Beamer's got all kinds of settings for different places and nervous system, blood. Anyways, yeah, there's a lot that can be said. The point of us talking about this is to lay out part of our structure, things we're going to be talking about later in more depth, but we just kind of wanted to introduce the physical area. So now I think it's good to switch over to the mental area of capacity. So we're going to talk about a bunch of mental techniques that improve our capacity area.
Yeah, so there's some things that are more obvious in like our social cliches, but when you actually step into them as a lived experience are super powerful. The consequences of positive thinking cannot be understated.
Yeah, basically everything we have in life, we have a relationship creates an energetic. So if you are hating on something, then that creates a certain level of energy. So if we're very aware, mindful of what our energy is towards things and how we're positioning ourselves towards different tasks and people, and we see how everything serves, then we're able to keep our energy at a much higher level. There's nothing, even things we quote unquote don't like, is kind of guiding us towards the things we do like. So everything serves a positive purpose in our life.
Yeah, and that's really what the idea of relationship alchemy really is that when we are conscious of our relationship to our experiences and to our energy, then we are authors of our lives. And that really influences the flavor of our experience and how we feel about being in the human experience. And another part of this whole positive thinking paradigm also brings in conscious language and using words that raise or drain your energy. There's a lot of should culture out there, and should is a huge trigger for cultural preconditioning that activates limiting beliefs of how we're supposed to be.
Conscious language has many important pieces. There's a guy, author, I think it's David Hawkins, who's got a book, Levels of Consciousness, that talks transcending the levels of consciousness, that gets into, for example, joy being a very powerful word and enthusiasm, and there's certain words that are very high vibration and certain words that are very low vibration. So that's an important aspect of we want to speak things in the first person as much as possible, like positive, keep things highly energized, specific, kind of paint people a picture of like what you're saying so things are clear and people can really feel it. When something gets into their feeling experience, whether it's our own feeling body or someone else, it has a bigger impact.
Yeah, and Encompass Life has deeper opportunities to come into more conscious language as well.
One of the most important things I've ever learned about my relationship to experience has to do with what meditation has taught me, what Dzogchen and Ma Mudra have taught me about focusing on the parts of my mind and my experience, not only as being the form that I originally associate with them, but to look at them as energy. There's these things called investigation practices where they're looking at the nature of a sound, the nature of a thought, a feeling, an emotion, and breaking it down and retraining the mind to see it as just energy. And the point of doing that is so that we're not so attached to our first understanding of something and we can see it through multiple perspectives. So when we can get to the place where we can be aware, acknowledge, and accept that all of our experiences are simply energy, it opens something up. It allows us to take into account what energetic fields might be influencing us, what traumas might be influencing, how does this align with some of our own energetic practices we talked about last week. And this is a big thing that I coach people on and mentor people on, is helping them change their entire experience by first rewiring their whole map of their mind to see everything as both an energetic experience as well as the pattern that they have seen this energetic experience before. And this allows them to bring new, more positive interpretations to to their experience and higher energy experiences. Meditation can also allow you to get into focus, doing some concentration exercises, which improves your capacity to get stuff done, to stay on task. It can also help you be non-reactive to triggers, create some space between your thoughts, feelings, and actions. So there's a little bit of a delay when you start to have a trigger. You maybe will have a little bit of time to think about, why am I doing this? Does this serve this situation? It also gives you this space to see your own patterns and see what's kind of going on within your own experiences. Perhaps there's negative loop patterns that you are working with, and this will enable you to become aware of them. Also, a lot of people are triggered because they've had some negative experiences in the past, and when they're triggered, it means that something in their current experience is reminding them of something from their past that they didn't feel entirely, that they didn't like, and they get triggered by it. And so when we learn to change our identity from these past wounds to being this present moment of energy, then a lot of the triggers start to fall away. That's called identity capacity, and that's something that I teach in my practice.
Yeah, Jonathan, I would love, since you've gone so deep with the meditation, to just share a little bit more about your personal journey with meditation and how that expanded you. Because I know it was really pivotal in the earlier part of your spiritual development.
I used to be at a place where my mind was constantly going, like there were never any breaks, and I was always thinking, and I was stuck in some loops of doing all kinds of things, but not really making the things that I wanted the most true, which was becoming an entrepreneur and having a deep, passionate, long-term romantic relationship. And when I started meditating, I was able to first get more focus and more distance between my thoughts, feeling, and sensations. And also I changed my relationship to them. Rather than seeing them as the truth, I saw them as energetic constructs in my awareness. And once I was able to do that, I was able to see what was really happening in my own mind, my own experience, and that led me down the path of purification and the path of clarity and the path of understanding, and helped me reorient to life in general. So it was one of the most important experiences of my life. In fact, I've dedicated my entire life to spreading the practices that I learned during the meditation, but using other tools beyond just the meditation tools themselves. For example, I'm a big proponent of energy and how energy plays an enormous role in learning how to get in touch with primordial energies and influence them, like we talked about in the first show. But meditation itself is helpful. Meditation combined with certain kinds of energy work and decrees. Actually, I wanted to talk about decrees. What I've noticed is that I had gotten to a point where I was feeling helpless at certain points in my life, and I made strong decrees, negative decrees about myself and about life, and then suppressed them. And these decrees were actually influencing my entire life. And what I've learned is how to surface the decrees that are running my life and reclaim my life by creating new decrees that support it. So, for example, I've learned that when I'm in a low energy, I have thoughts and feelings that don't really serve me. So I have a decree that I think I mentioned in the last episode about all negative thoughts and feelings are because I have negative energy. And I kept saying that so much that eventually I stopped listening to my negative thoughts and emotions, and I was like, well, this has something to do with my energy level. And I started getting into a better energy place before I made decisions. And so it was like it changed my life entirely.
Yeah, I have a lot of, because that was earlier in your journey. For me, it's still a bit recent.
Mm-hmm.
Of that humans have this tendency to kind of identify with their low energy thoughts and their negative thoughts, and to go into reactionary patterns around those thoughts, like, why am I like this? Why me? Like, I can't believe I'm like this. And so not only do they have the negative thoughts, but then they have a lot of grab around them. And so it drains their energy even lower with all these self-judgmenting patterns. And so when we make this decree, this just awareness that I am not my thoughts, I am the observer of the thoughts as they stream through my mind, the game immediately changes because you take back your power of choice in what you engage in and what you identify with and what is just running through you. You know, there are plenty of people that have, you know, every once in a while, not all the time, but like spontaneous, violent thoughts. And it's just things that go through our head and we would never act on them necessarily. But if we judge and grab, then they get louder and perpetuate. Like there's this place of non-attachment that decrees can help really repattern.
And decrees can really help with embodiment. So, for example, you could have a simple decree like it's safe, or it's safe to feel, or it's safe to be in my body, that helps relax the mind. And once you're aware of what's actually happening in your mind, you can reprogram your mind using these decrees to make you a more relaxed and present, I'm here and I stay. And they can really complement the embodiment practices like yoga and flow arts and other physical practices. To have a mental practice that also supplements that is a game changer. And lastly, in the mental arena, we wanted to talk about different kinds of self-awarenesses, like, for example, the spiritual edges I was talking about. There's an awareness of being able to see what's going on in your own mind and dealing with it. When I'm working with when I'm mentoring people, I always help them see what are the exact decrees they're making and energies they are using, and that are causing their negative patterns, or are helping them be in ways of being that are not optimal. And then once we have that self-awareness, we can get the right examples. There's also a lot of self-awareness tools. Soraya, did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Actually, I wanted to pick up the thread that you started earlier about how the mental practices can support embodiment.
Okay.
Because I think that this is an aspect of culture that just needs to be restated over and over again. The average person is lost in their mind. Consumerism in general is like very mentally oriented. Television, video games, books, media, social media, technology in general. These are all very mind-oriented ways of experiencing reality. And so mind-body connection is a universal returning to the underlying nature of what it is to be human. And this is what I really want to see develop for culture, is this way of balancing the amount of time that we spend in technology versus in person, socially relating versus, consuming media. There's something that's been really lost that the practice of embodiment is seeking to reclaim. And it's the reason that you find people that really just like magnetize you. Like, whoa, this person's got something going on. There's like this aura or this glow, and like, celebrities have it, but sometimes you meet an average person that has it. I really think it's this level of embodiment where we've dropped out of the mind and deep enough into our bodies that you really feel the energy or the magnetism or the impact of a person's presence, because they're exuding a level of presence that we don't see in the average being. And so, yeah, I just wanted to call attention to the power of the physical and the mental meeting.
So self-awareness is the last practices. We already talked about spiritual edges, but there's a self-awareness tools such as the human design or the gene keys, which we briefly mentioned last episode, or the Enneagram or Mbti, these typology systems that can give you insights into your strengths, your weaknesses, your purpose on the planet, Soraya, I know that those, particularly Gene Keys, has been one of your favorites. You want to talk a little bit about typology systems?
Yeah, there's so many typology systems. There's also Sparketype and Strengths Finder. Humans have been attempting to archetypally define themselves for a very long time, all the way back to astrology and the I Ching and all these other more ancient tools. And the reason I'm really a fan of human design and its cousin Gene Keys is because it really distills a lot of them together. It includes and incorporates I Ching, astrology, even chakras in a loose sense, into a singular modality of human typology, which really the Gene Keys especially, it's rooted in virtue, which is what I love about it. Like when we're grounding our sense of self, it's kind of abstract to ground it in a random summary of what our personality is going to be like in an online web page. But to say, oh, these are the values, these are the gifts, these are the archetypal virtues that are grounding my core essence, I feel like for me personally that has so much more resonance and holding power as far as something that I can continually return to as a part of my core expression. And there are 11 keys in the Gene Keys, the activation sequence, the Venus sequence, the Pearl sequence. And just, for example, the activation sequence, it has life's work, your path of evolution, your radiance, what keeps you healthy and radiating, like I was describing earlier, and your life's purpose. Like these are the kinds of details that when I was searching in other typology systems, I was really hoping to find. And there are keys specifically dedicated to them and very clearly dedicated to them. So to be clear about the relationship between human design and Gene Keys, human design has a lot of depth, and Gene Keys takes that depth and creates a linear path of study and uses essentially contemplation as the unveiling of deeper meaning in our lives. And talking about some of the other typology systems, Mbti is one of the ones that I fell in love with first, but it has such a specific lensing. It is the way and the order in which our brain receives and prioritizes and interprets information. So it can really help understand the nature of our minds, but it doesn't, I think, personally have as much to say about the nature of our souls. And Enneagram is also a really deep system, but some of the core things about its way of archetyping people is whether you're a sign that's mostly coming from the heart, the gut, or the mind. And I think those are really valuable distinctions to really sense in our being and in our experience when we are coming from each of these. Can be a game changer in awareness in a big way.
Yeah, we could spend we can and we will eventually spending entire episodes on some of the strongest typology systems, but in the spirit of time, I'd like to go through the emotional system before the end of the show. Soraya, I know this has been an area of expertise of yourself. Do you want to tell a little bit more about what this is even about, this area? And what are some of your favorite techniques?
Yeah, so speaking more broadly, emotional capacity, it's something that's represented in palmistry by the length of your heart line. And there is a way in which people that have narrower emotional capacities, if any sort of heatedness or emotion or tone comes into the conversation that is beyond the emotional bandwidth of the opposite individual, they can't receive what's being spoken. They just hear this emotion and this tone that they can't receive, and they lose the ability to stay with the words of what is spoken. And so when we increase our emotional capacity and when we work on our emotional intelligence, one of the things that we're really enhancing is our ability to listen and to receive the full spectrum of the human experience, as well as developing other kinds of sensitivities to how we're being received by other people. And a lot of the more advanced parts of this are covered in the human connection path of intimacy. But what we wanted to cover in path of capacity are things like emotional freedom technique. EFT is something that I personally learned when I was studying some of Veda Thai yoga therapy, and it has to do with tapping certain pressure points in the face and arm and hand to release trapped emotions from the body while saying certain phrases. And this can be a really powerful technique for pulling up repressed emotion for release. And then there's emotional release tools like Jonathan and I learned at International School of the Temple Arts, which their ethos around emotion is basically that emotion is meant to run through the human body. And so they have certain tools, certain ways of physically embodying the release so that it doesn't get built up. And when you have excess, you know how to channel it through and return to your center. And just to get into one example, because there are 8 of them, we don't have time for them all, but this idea of screaming into a pillow or into your hands while shaking twisting your torso, your shoulders going back and forth, to actually move it through your whole body and out of your body through the screaming practice. Screaming practice is mentioned in more lineages than just this one. And so emotional release tools can be super powerful. If you're not backlogged, if you've actually faced a lot of the repressed emotion and you don't have intensity in your past that's unfelt, emotions only really last, 7 seconds to 30 seconds, maximum a few minutes. Emotions are meant to be quick experiences. And when they're longer experiences or when they're sticky, it's because we weren't able to be with them or accept them or process them or let them really move through us because there's something in our field that's grabbing onto them or judging them or feeling shame around them. And so it really, knowing how short emotions are meant to last really can free us up to have a new relationship with our emotions. Like, if I just give this the space that it needs, it can be a brief experience, or I can repress it and I need to watch a 2-hour a sad movie on the weekend to try to pull up the undercurrent of what hasn't been acknowledged and re-trigger it. Like there's a way that we can be more direct with our emotions. And so that goes into things like the window of tolerance and hyper arousal and hypo arousal. And so something I learned from my years in therapy is this idea that, because I was having this experience of whenever I hit a 10 emotionally, whenever I hit the upper end of emotional intensity, I would drop to a 0 because I couldn't handle being at that level of intensity and I would just numb out and disassociate. When we talk about emotional intelligence, we're usually resting between 4 and 6, and so it's developing sensitivity of when you're climbing to a 7 or an 8 and kind of meeting it before it gets out of control, because at 9 and 10 and sometimes 8, you're already beyond your ability to influence that emotion. And so a lot of times emotional intelligence is realizing when something's escalating or aggravating us before it gets so intense that it runs off with us. And this comes back to awareness. And also finding safe containers to run emotional energy, and culturally redefining the way that we handle and relate to emotions so that people can be more expressive. And I think there's a rhetoric in the mainstream about men not having permission to feel their emotions, and I think it's true for sure. Like, men need more permission to be in their emotional bodies, But I think women too have blocks to feeling their emotions. They're afraid of being labeled as crazy or erratic or a drama queen, or it being blamed on their cycle and being written off and it not being respected that they're an emotional intensity. So I think the full spectrum of gender really needs a reparadigming of how we culturally handle high emotional states.
And emotional capacity, there's two levels to it. There's this first level where you're kind of like having like a yelling practice or some of the other things Soraya was talking about, where allow you to return to presence quickly. And then there is the path of purification, is also deals with emotional and other kinds of releases. That's the deeper, more suppressed trapped energy, and that's something we'll talk about in next week's show. And I wanted to finish off the path of capacity talking about healthy habits. Really, this applies to all four: physical, energetic, mental, and emotional. Is about actually having a precise pattern to get your energy up on a consistent basis, or to have the right amount of energy for the task. In epi-energetics, that's the goal, is matching the exact form of energy with the context that you're about to approach. And that's something that somebody can help you with. I know in the mentoring work that I do, that's one of the things I specialize in. And also when you're forming new habits, it's good to have an accountability system. It's good to work with other people to talk about the things that are challenging and how to move past that. Really, a new habit only happens after doing something for like 30 days in a row, and it's easy to fall off a bandwagon after a short burst of excitement.
Right, because a lot of times when you want to make a change, if you wanted it and it was easy, you would have already done it, right? So there are subconscious patterns interfering with our ability to show up to a habit change. And so when you have accountability, those people, those coaches, they're trained in how to meet subconscious resistance and identify it and what the common obstacles are to the kind of change that you're trying to create. And so it's super important to have that accountability for hard to make changes.
The last thing we wanted to finish about today's show is to talk about the path of capacity and how it impacts the other 5 paths that we're going to be talking about in the next few episodes. And once we go through the whole map, we're getting more and more specific and narrow. Our intention is to have a coherent model of which the rest of the show unfolds. And so we will be constantly referring back when we're talking to certain guests or certain specific techniques about which one of the paths it's including. So why don't we first talk about the connection between the path of capacity and remembering wholeness and the path of purification.
So the path of capacity is so fundamental to the path of purification because, for example, meditation is huge in path of capacity. And if you don't have a certain degree of spaciousness from your thoughts, when you go into the purification and difficult subject matter comes up in your shadow work, it's going to be hard to stay with it with a degree of distance that's needed to really offer it love.
Absolutely. In addition to that, you're going to want to come to a higher version of what happened. So when we're resurfacing suppressed traumas, we're not looking to re-wound ourselves and just have the experience again. It's to look at it with a little bit of objectivity, to feel our feelings in their entirety, but also see maybe from a longer view or other view some other perspectives. So at which point you actually need to bring your energy up to a certain point so that you're able to have these higher perspectives. Want to talk about the path? Go ahead.
Yeah, so path of capacity as it affects human connection, the path of intimacy. We just talked a lot about the emotional capacity. Having a short emotional bandwidth can really impact the way that you show up in relationship. And so having a certain degree of tolerance or emotional intelligence keeps you able to show up authentically in connection to meet problems or challenges or difficulties and actually stay in the dialogue and continue the process of creating more harmony. So that's just one area of how capacity improves path of intimacy.
I mean, it makes you more energized, a better, more enthusiastic version. The meditation will allow you to have like less reactivity and help you stay more focused. There's also being able to, the more energy you have and the more presence you have, the more you can see about the subtle and overt dynamics going on in a human connection that can help you have deeper intimacy and deeper connection with the people. And when you're getting into community dynamics and the path of collaboration, then your presence energy has to be so big you're interacting with multiple people at the same time and see systems and how do you have a message that resonates with more people, is able to deal with greater and greater degrees of complexity, and there's more possibility for conflict in that area. So a lot of energy and perspective taking and the need to be able to work with certain energies is needed when you're getting into community dynamics.
Yeah, and this is where the self-awareness tools like Gene Keys and Human Design can really assist, because when you're in a group field, it's easy to lose your sense of self if you don't have a solid self-awareness, understanding, and practice to really ground what of this situation is truly me. When you get into a cultural field or a group field, it's easier to kind of become one with the bandwagon. And so in order to bring all of our individual gifts and strengths, having grounded this personal alignment path is really creating the understructure for healthy community dynamics.
And then in the third person, there's the path of the transpersonal, which allows to have the direct knowing. And that's all about energy, getting your energy up, connecting with the soul intelligence. There's also a deep path between the path of purification, because of the clarity. In order to have the clarity, you have to be able to differentiate what's coming from shadow triggers and what's coming from your heart soul. So there's a huge meditative component to the path of the transpersonal too, and being able to use meditation tools to connect with the different higher energies. And then the path of understanding, that requires a lot of upper mental energies. It requires a lot of seeing complexities and meta constructs, pattern recognition, and
a lot of conscious language goes into that too.
Yeah, so unity is about seeing deeper patterns, and this is something, in order to have these kinds of high level conversations, these meta perspectives, you have to be at a much higher energetic state and have less attachment to your views, to see the simplicity behind all the complexity of life, that there's a simpler meta pattern understanding to everything. And so energy is at the core of that path as well. So wanted to thank you for joining us today. Next week's show, we will be going deep, deep, deep into remembering wholeness, the path of purification.
And if any of this content inspires you to want to go deeper, please do reach out to us at Jonathan@relationshipalchemist.com or Rachel@relationshipalchemist.com, and we can create some sort of coaching container where we can exercise some of these tools directly.
Absolutely. We've got coaching, mentoring, rituals, retreats. We work with couples, we work with individuals, and we're going to be announcing some small group retreats in the coming months. If you go to www.relationshipalchemist.com, it will take us to our YouTube channel right now, where we've got an introductory video as well as a link to previous episodes. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Take care.
Good night.
As we all take accountability for our energy coherence, we create the world where more is possible. More beauty, more magic, more joy. So let's all step into conscious creatorship together. Sending you omnipresent love.